Welcome back to the Saturday Scholars College Football Podcast. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. That is Gonzo. I am Shoob, and today we are here to do Week 11 recap. Let's go. Another great week of college footballs is in the books, my man, and we're here to talk about it. We've already had some head coach firings. The first head coach firings of the 2023 season. It's that time of year, folks. November is where it gets ugly. Black Sunday hit a little bit earlier this year. It always seems to hit a little bit earlier these days. But yeah, there's some big storylines to talk about, and especially with the games that were played as well. A lot going on. Zan is going to join us at some point here in the middle of this pod. Not sure exactly when he's going to hop on, but he'll be just hopping on at some point. So it's just you and me for the meantime.
He might be interviewing for the A&M job right now. So maybe that's why he's a little late, Shoob.
Either that or he's probably trying to figure out how to buy out Mike Gundy after that UCF loss.
Y'all called it, and I had the guts to actually pick it.
I don't blame you. I told my dad on the phone. I told you guys off the record, like I thought UCF was going to win that game. I just didn't think it would be that bad. But we'll get to that. Most people here, you're probably not here. UCF Oklahoma State. We'll get to that later on. But there's a lot to talk about. So I think there's a lot of stuff, man. But I think the first thing we got to tackle here is Michigan Penn State, because there's storylines on both sides. In this game, I don't know if you were able to watch this game live. I was able to watch this game live. I once again was able to sort of middle this game betting wise, like to perfection. Voila, chef's kiss. I had the under 48, played a little alt under with a boost, and then I also had Michigan -4 on the spread as well, so a little 2-for-1 special there. Got them both. Thanks to DK for giving me those nice boosts. And I'm telling you, man, I've been like on the right side of these big games so far the last few weeks. And I'm in the positive so far betting wise with my personal money, which, you know, I'm very proud of. But anyways, it's not about what's in my wallet. Let's talk about what happened on the field.
What's in your wallet?
Yeah, exactly. I don't think a lot of money is in Penn State fans' wallets, especially if they bet on their team last week. 24-15 was the final. And this game was definitely an old-fashioned, good old Big Ten line of scrimmage rock fight. If you like watching lines of scrimmage, because you know how like some people watch football differently. Some people just like watching where the ball goes. They like following where the ball is. So they're normally watching the quarterback and everything as the play goes. Some people like watching the line of scrimmage as the plays develop. And some people like watching the defense or the receivers, individual matchups on the outside and sort of stuff that goes on away from the ball. If you're one of those folks that likes to pay attention to the blocking and what's going on in the trenches, this was a fun one. And I thought it was a chess match on both sides. But what are your thoughts here?
Well, Shoob, I want to take the Penn State angle first. It's looking like another 10-2 season unless something a little surprising happens the next couple of weeks. Drew Aller at 10-22, 70 yards and a touchdown. And watching this game, I was out tailgating for the early part of the day before we went back home. Watching this game, Shoob, it never felt like Penn State really ever threatened. It really felt like Michigan kind of just slowly compressed them to death, which is very Georgia-like of Michigan. And, you know, hats off to Manny Diaz. You know, he's been absolutely coaching his butt off since, you know, he's left Miami and been to DC at Penn State. I mean, you hold Michigan to 24 points. I mean, I think that's an absolutely great day at the office. And this game was close in the fourth quarter, you know, with Michigan putting some scores in to put it away at the end. But we saw that Jurkic, and I know you personally have a personal connection with Jurkic, not that you know him, but he was Oak State's, you know, Gundy found him before he launched off into prominence. And it's interesting that
State. Humble beginnings.
Shippensburg, and he got shippened out, unfortunately. You know, apparently James Franklin thinks that'll be the solution, but the reality is, you know, they've just not done well in these prime time games. And it's simple, you know, Michigan had the better roster, and it showed. And we want to talk, Michigan hasn't played anybody. And I do have my thoughts on JJ McCarthy in the Heisman race. I don't necessarily think he should be the front runner, like some say. But at the end of the day, when they played without their head coach in a hostile road environment, they won the game, at least to me, handedly. And hats off to Michigan as they keep on rolling towards a Big Ten title. Potentially.
Well, I'm fine with taking the Penn State angle here first. I think the Yurcich firing was maybe a little premature. I totally get it though. I mean, you watched the game, there were boos raining down from the stadium there at Beaver Stadium in the fourth quarter. And some of the play calls with the game on the line were not the greatest. But at the same time, Drew Aller is just not ready yet. I mean, a lot of it has to do with just execution.
He's still raw, unfortunately.
Yeah,
even
and
as a,
exactly. I think a great comparison I heard someone make is someone said that Drew Aller is basically JJ McCarthy last year in his progression in terms of his progression as a quarterback development. And I think that's pretty true. I think the problem for Penn State is just quarterback play. Like, this was the team going into this year. It was like, okay, Penn State finally has the team. They've been stuck in this tier of 10-2, 10-2, can't beat Michigan, Ohio State, can't beat the elite teams. Like, very good, top 10 team every year, top 15 team. But you hit that ceiling, you hit that wall of like the Ohio States, the Georgias, that tier, and you can't beat those teams this year, Michigan and Ohio State. And that's sort of been the narrative going into this year. And it's like, okay, James Franklin finally has the right formula. He's finally got the team that could potentially fight in the same weight class as Michigan and Ohio State. And he's got to beat at least one of them to finally knock down that pillar and potentially get to a Big Ten championship game. And he wasn't able to do it.
Well, and it used to be, oh, I'm sorry, Shoup. Finish your point.
Well, I was just going to say, I think, Yurcich is not a bad offensive coordinator. Yeah, some of the play calling was not the greatest, but it's like you're going up against Michigan. You're going up against a team that has the number one most efficient defense in the entire country. Like, hello? This is literally the number one defense according to the efficiency metrics in the whole country. You have a young quarterback who's a true sophomore who's like not fully developed yet. Like, so much of this you can only put so much blame on a single individual person. I just think that Yurcich kind of was the fall guy for this. It was kind of like, well, the fans aren't happy. They're clearly not happy right now with Franklin. So it's like, well, you got to do something. And this kind of felt like I got to do something move. And I just think it was a little premature, but I know Penn State fans probably are yelling at me right now. Well, I get it.
Well, I mean, how are things going to get any better? Answer me this. Oregon looks like a buzzsaw right now, and they're going to have a top 3 roster when they come into the Big Ten next year, and Washington as well. You're interested. It'll be interesting to see if they can keep this kind of production up as they make the transition with personnel and losing guys to the NFL. But you've got in USC, of course, you've got great in UCLA. I'll get the whole bunch included. You got a bunch of other great teams, good teams coming into the Big Ten. I mean, I am happy to go 9-3, 10-2 with that crop coming in. I mean, and James Franklin has won the conference, almost made the playoff. It's there. It just feels like, I hope Penn State, they might feel like Georgia in the mid-aughts, when with Mark Richt, you were always just missing it. You were, losing Alabama, just missing out on the SEC championship. Going all these New Year's Six games, then look, you fire him and you land an absolute stud in Kirby Smart. But that, my friend, I think is the exception more than the rule. You are more likely, and I'm just you're more likely to hit on coaches. I'll say it like a Jim McElwain. You're more likely to hit a Jim McElwain type guy, or a Bill O'Brien type, for someone to actually coach there, than hit on the next dynasty builder, in my opinion. So I think James Franklin is the best you could do right now, and all you can do is just keep funneling into the NIL campaign and just hope you land in the transfer portal. And that's part of it too. They just did not hit in the transfer portal, and unfortunately Michigan finally caught up. Ohio State had been there, and Michigan's finally beaten a roster that surpassed Penn State's, and that's frankly my opinion on why Penn State is where they are at this moment in time.
And
in
I
college football
understand that. I
landscape.
think Penn State fans, since James Franklin has gotten there, has seen the ascension of Michigan coming from underneath them. And in that time, if you're a Penn State fan, you're saying, well, Michigan made that ascension after you got here, and now they're a weight class above us. Ohio State's always been a weight class that they couldn't punch through, except I think 2016, that one year they were able to do that. But I kind of get it. I get it if you're a Penn State fan. Listen, I think the point here about Penn State is I just think that they are what they are, right? Like they recruit in the usually what, like the 10 to 15 range. That's usually where they end up recruiting.
Top 15 recruiting.
And where would you value Penn State as a program? I'd say they're a fringe top 10 to top 15 program in the country.
Yes.
That's what I view Penn State. Like they literally meet their program level in accordance to what their recruiting suggests they should. They meet expectations.
I don't think you should do something hasty like deposing James Franklin over the inability to be the other two big dogs in the conference, because I promise you a lot of teams would kill to go to New Year's Six Bowls, be competitive for the Big Ten if one of these two teams are down. So I think Penn State just needs to keep chipping away and it'll hit eventually. And again, they've won the conference. So it's not like he's won the conference. There is a track record. It's just you got to hit the recruiting trail and just get it at quarterback, in my opinion.
Yeah, they have to start recruiting better. And I think James Franklin, it's like people are saying he's overrated. He's not a great coach. Well,
no, he's probably
my whole thing is
he made Vandy good. He made Vandy good.
Right. Let's not forget here. The reason this man was hired was because the Bill O'Brien era at Penn State tailed off. They were winning like 7-8 games a year at the end of the Bill O'Brien era, and they needed someone to take them to that next step and say, hey, get us to 10 wins a year, get us up into that tier, get us into the Michigan, Ohio State realm. And James Franklin has done that. He has gotten them there. They just can't surpass him. I mean, they're climbing the wall. They just can't get over the other side.
They got the Night Watch out there shooting them down from the Game of Thrones fans. But Shub also, I mean, Michigan's only made the ascent the last few years. I mean, so nothing can stop Penn State from doing that exact same thing. And also, I mean, they have the luxury of they're playing in the East. If they're playing in the West, this is a whole different story. Because look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin came close to the college football playoff berth, was almost perennial New Year's Six contender. In fact, heck, they were. They went to like 3 straight Rose Bowls, I want to say, at one point. And now look where they are. I mean, they have had the coaching transition, and they are not the powerhouse they used to be. So some of that is kind of division luck too, unfortunately, for Penn State, because you are forced to play the two best teams in your division, and honestly, what are considered top 10 teams every year. At least top 15 would count for some of those off Michigan years.
I would agree.
I don't think everything's on fire at Penn State like people want to believe, or the fans want to believe, even though I feel for you. Like LSU deals with this when Bama beat them for 8 straight years. Like Florida with how Georgia's doing right now. But you're in a great spot.
Yeah, I totally get the frustration, but it is definitely a be careful what you wish for type of situation there. I will say this, before we move on to the Michigan side, and we'll move on from here, but let me ask you really quick. How good is this team? Is this Penn State team, is it better with last year's Sean Clifford as a redshirt senior?
Yes. It's experience. Anytime you got a guy who's played 30 plus games,
the timing,
he's got the ceiling, like he's got the potential, but you can't be just having a guy who has seen it all. I mean, look at baseball, man. We could bring in the best pitcher in America, but do you want him closing out the College World Series or the World Series? Or do you want your guy who's been in the league for 15 years or is a redshirt senior on the team? You want seniors, you want guys with experience in those roles. So that's a long way of saying, yes, they were better when Clifford was there solely because of his experience, because Auer is definitely more talented.
It's unfortunate, but the timing of the quarterback transition just couldn't be any worse. Like if Sean Clifford just had one more year of eligibility, 5th-year senior Sean Clifford the guy that's got that ceiling there. He's a good college player, doesn't have a huge NFL ceiling. That's the type of player that could probably take out a Michigan or Ohio State this year with this roster, but
Jag
it just
plus
didn't line up,
with
man.
this roster.
You could not line up the most important position on the entire field with the rest of your roster, which had everything aligned for this season. And unfortunately, you couldn't do it. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, it's next year. Next year, Drew Lar could be like JJ McCarthy right now, and we'll be saying, "Oh man, could you imagine if Drew Lar was playing like this in 2023? Penn State would be looked at totally differently." But let's.
You need a game manager, and ours just not there yet. But if you have a game manager with this team, you can at least split either of the Ohio State or Michigan games, I think.
So as far as Michigan, for me, watching this game, man, like Michigan is legitimately very good. I think Michigan is in the Georgia, Oregon tier, if we want to call that tier.
I'd say it's 1A, 1B with Georgia. How Oregon does things is just so different. They're just so explosive, so dynamic. They don't really Oregon doesn't really squeeze you to death. Like I said earlier with Georgia, like Georgia, it really feels like they get in there and then just boa constrict you. And I think the defenses are very comparable. And we want to talk about the sign stealing, the Harbaugh, the playing ECU, playing I forget who else. Just that really just atrocious non-con. But the reality is you play who you play on the schedule. And when they got out there, you won a tough road game. And you ran the ball a million times and it worked. And Michigan is legit. I don't think they're overrated or anything like that. They're properly rated. They're a great team. For them, it's going to be okay. Can you make it three straight against Ohio State? And can you deliver when you get to the playoff this time? And I think you can, because I was kind of a little what am I trying to say? I was being critical of JJ McCarthy, and you kind of pushed back on that, and rightfully so, because he is a good player. I think a lot of teams would take him right now, and that's probably just a LSU fan being salty with the Heisman hype, but I think he's a solid player, and I think he's definitely improved from last year to this year, and he's the perfect guy to be leading this kind of team right now. He can make plays if you need him, but he's more than fine to just operate the offense, and they're just a unit right now, and it's incredible. It really is.
I just can't believe JJ McCarthy only threw 8 passes in this whole game.
Hey,
I watched the entire game, and then I went and looked at the box score and was like, wait a minute, he only threw 8 passes? And that really happens to me. I'm usually kind of in sync with what the box score says versus what I watch. And I was like, what the hell? I didn't realize it was that run heavy. And shout out Blake Corum, man. That was a Heisman performance from Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. They both did very well. Blake Corum especially.
Oh, of the guys, I don't know why Blake Corum doesn't get the Heisman hype. I mean, he was a unit last year. He gets hurt, and it's like the country forgot he existed. Well, the fact that he doesn't get mentioned, and I know quarterback award, all those same talking points, but the fact he doesn't get mentioned, and the person you do mention is JJ McCarthy over him, just baffles me.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. Michigan right now through week 10, the efficiency numbers don't update. We record on Sunday evenings, so they don't update on Sundays, unfortunately, when we record. But through week 10, number 2 offense in the country, numero uno defense in the country. I think it's a pretty legit team. I think this is a team that can win a national title this year. I legitimately mean that. That defensive line, Michigan's defensive line is like no joke, like
it NFL with
stutter.
Georgia, like what Georgia has had.
It is a legitimate NFL defensive line. Like, it is what you're used to seeing from Georgia and all of Georgia's guys going into the NFL. That is what Michigan has this year. Like, they have a team that can win a national championship. I totally agree with that. And I think I said it in the preseason. I thought Michigan was the best team in the Big Ten. I thought this was the team. Man. I thought this was the team that could potentially actually compete for a national championship. And I still think that is the case. I think, like we said, Georgia, Michigan, 1A, 1B, and then maybe Oregon, 1C. That's what I see it right now. And then I see Alabama playing into that. I see Alabama playing their way into that 1 tier as well. In fact, maybe they have. I don't know. Alabama has looked pretty dang good, man. I might throw Bama in there. They've played their way into it. I think you got Georgia, Michigan, Oregon, Alabama, and then a little bit of a gap. Then you have Washington, Florida State, et cetera, et cetera. I would throw Ohio State in the Florida State Washington
Okay.
bucket. Yeah.
I,
Ohio
I
State's
think
offense is not good enough.
I think you're like legitimate win this whole dang thing are Michigan, Georgia, Oregon. Like those are Bama. Well, Bama may be cheering off as, but like the first three I mentioned, like absolutely could win
Yeah.
Natty, and Bama might just do it with the with the Jacob Coker deal. But
I
we'll
mean,
get into them later. I mean,
yeah, we got the
man,
SEC championship game scheduled, but let's speaking of the SEC, let's talk some SEC. So Jimbo Fisher, the day has finally come. The chickens have finally come home to roost, man. I never
that's
thought I'd
true.
see this day.
I didn't either.
The A&M brass have finally gotten together. The decision was made privately on Thursday. It became public today on Sunday. This morning, the news became official. Jimbo Fisher is officially out as the head coach of Texas A&M, and they owe him a $76.8 million buyout. That
Woo!
is what he is owed on his contract. Boy, there's a lot to unpack here. I mean, listen, I feel like we've all been like prepared for this because we knew this day was eventually going to come. It was just a matter of when, not if at this point. It was just kind of a when thing. It's finally happened. What do we have to say? What are your thoughts on the Jimbo Fisher era at Texas A&M?
So, I mean, I'll pull the stats right here. In his 6 years, this being the 6th year, the records. I'm gonna give you the records as well as the finishes in the SEC West. Ready? First year, 9-4, second in the West. Next year, 8-5, fourth in the West. COVID year, 9-1, still second in the West, and they beat Bama that year too. 21,
Asterisk.
8. Yep, asterisk AF, and they won the Orange Bowl. The only New Year's Six they made it in. They beat that UNC team. 2021, 8-4, third in the West. Last year, disaster. Didn't make a bowl game. Sixth in the West. Still beat LSU though. That was just atrocious. This year, 6-4, and Jimbo's fired. So I put it like this, Shoob. Jimbo, after the Jameis years, he still had good teams, but it seemed like Jimbo was just living off of that 2013 team and the Heisman with Jameis and all those guys in the NFL. And so A&M takes the bait, and they're like, "Oh, well, duh, they'll just do it here with more resources." And he just never, dude. In all those records I read to you, you know what's interesting? Not a single double-digit win season. I'm pretty sure Kentucky has found a way to win 10 games.
They did.
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
Kentucky
Yeah,
won
so
10 in 2019, I think.
Yeah, I mean, with all the money, all that buy-in, Jimbo could not get out of his own way. In my opinion, he has this very intricate playbook. That's my understanding, and you don't need that in college football. You need like probably 12 plays, especially if you got absolute studs. And I know the SEC is tough. All those cliches. The West is tough, and Alabama and the LSU's, but I mean, you made Kellen Mond look good, for goodness sake. He got Kellen Mond drafted. You want to talk? We talk about that fool's gold.
I mean, you could listen. We trash Kellen Mond a lot here, but like, you could argue
of course
he's been the best quarterback of the Jimbo Fisher era, has he not? They had that. He led the best team of the Jimbo Fisher era. Like, even though we say 2020 was an asterisk, I mean, it kind of was. But at the same time, that team in a normal season probably would have went like 9-3, maybe 10-2. I think.
Yeah,
that sound fair?
No, that's absolutely fair.
But that team still was like not even close to that 2020 Alabama team. And to be fair, 2020 Alabama was like one of the best teams of all time. But like, they weren't even close. That game, I remember Bama beat them by like 40 points that year.
Oh, thank you for that, Shoob. It was 21 they beat Bama, not 2020. No,
Yeah.
Bama went undefeated. So thank you for catching me on the back end there. So
I
they
knew
beat Bama that next year.
Right.
Yeah. Point is, you beat Bama, which, that's what you got brought in to do. You ended the assistant streak. But yeah, you bring in all this talent. You weren't able to mold it. There's clearly, I mean, oh my gosh, how about we got guys speeding in the parking lot, guys getting suspended for wearing, drip and sleeves and stuff. Just all this, like, it was the FSU stuff again, minus like serious stuff. But that reared its head again. And it's interesting because A&M, the SEC is about to change. You got your former big brother you've been running from for a while in Texas. They're finally home from college, and they're back in town. And your cousin, who's kind of beat you around, Oklahoma, they're coming back too from their graduate program. So now they're coming into the league. You really need to nail this. And I'm interested to see if Aggie fans again want the splash. They want the floor. They want the supermodel girl. They don't want the wholesome. She's gonna be there waiting for you. You know, she gets off work the same time you do. Y'all get there and y'all go have a nice dinner together. Y'all walk in the park together. A wholesome girl. No, they want this absolute supermodel of a coach. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily lead to a good relationship. So I say that I say that with the pretext of maybe you want a guy who's a little less flash, kind of more maybe Mike Elko. You know, I don't want to start name dropping, but guys who are going to come in, they understand how it operates at A&M, fix that culture, and then just kind of start digging out of this really deep hole you dug yourself in. I mean, you're paying Jimbo $76 million to go away, so you really need to justify that.
I mean, imagine being paid $76 million just to go away, like you said, just to stop working. I mean,
heartbeat.
Like, I got to give a little clap to Jimbo Fisher, man. Like this dude just basically secured himself $76 million to not work. I respect it to a certain extent, man. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I think the point is like two things here. One, financially, like everyone's saying, like, oh, how is this even possible? Man, you see the money being pumped into the sport right now. You see those TV contracts, like money. You see those NIL deals. Like money is not even real at this point. Like college football money is not real.
Monopoly money.
It is monopoly money. It really is, man. And I saw some thread about how A&M can financially basically fund this $76 million. And the way that they're doing it, it's not clearly they wouldn't be doing this. They wouldn't have pulled the trigger if it wasn't financially feasible for them to do it. They are going to be able to do it, and it's not going to be that big of a hit as a normal person would expect. That's the end of that's all you really need to know about that. But second thing here, you kind of hinted at this, and this is where I think a lot of people are probably interested to hear. Prospective coaches. Now this is big. This is I love this is the best part, man. The coaching carousel is always one of my favorite things about this sport. This is by far the best job opening of this year, correct? Like not even
so
close.
Far. Yeah.
So far.
Unless you're dying to go to East Lansing. No, it's easily.
Yeah, this is better than Michigan State. Not
absolutely.
A question. Not a question. So with that being said, I saw a tweet from our boy Pete Thamel.
Yep, pulled it up right
now. And let's give us a list of names here for Texas A&M just off the bat here. So we have Lane Kiffin, Mike Elko, Mike Norvell, Dan Lanning, Jeff Traylor, Chris Kleinman, Cliff Kingsbury, Kalen DeBoer. Now, I don't know how you want to do this. Maybe quickly go through each one, and because I think there's two or three of those guys that I think that they should hire right now. I think it would be successful hires.
All right.
So, Lane Kiffin.
No way.
I don't see that. I don't see it.
No. I just think he's what they expect at A&M, and I'm trying not to parrot talking points I've heard before, but where the expectations are, I mean, Lane, no, you're investing a lot, and I think he's perfect where he is at Ole Miss, and I just don't really know if Lane would vibe well with the Aggie culture.
I mean, Lane didn't take the Auburn job last season when he could have had the chance, so I kind of look at that. I'm like, I think that's a little bit of a signal. I think Lane is holding out for when Saban retires.
It's gonna be a troll job from him with this. He's not.
I think Lane is waiting for the day Saban retires to be the next head coach at Alabama. That's what I think. That's the rumor mill. But we'll see. I think he'll entertain this. I'm sure he will entertain it, man, because they got money. They obviously have money. But I'm agreeing with you. I view this more as unlikely. I'll throw this in the unlikely category. Next up is Mike Elko, head coach at Duke.
I like this one. Obviously, he's got the A&M connections. I mean, look what he did at Duke in 2 years. And hey, come on back, bring in Mr. Riley Leonard with you, maybe. If his NFL aspirations aren't necessarily where where he thinks they should be at this point in his career. And I mean, dude, you took down Clemson for goodness sake. You know, like you took down the perceived top dog in the conference. FSU, we've talked about it, how he kind of should have just sold on that one, but he still tried to beat FSU and was relatively competitive.
He's the head coach at Duke, man. Like, this is Duke. We shouldn't even be talking about them competing with FSU
Agreed.
and Clemson. So
and
just even the fact that they are doing that is like, that speaks for itself. And Duke right now is a top 20 defense. Yeah, I think he's listen, this one I think on paper makes the most sense to me. He's a defensive guy. I think if you're Texas A&M, your biggest problem is, and we see this happen all the time, is when you have these head coaching openings, usually what the university decides to do is to go with a coach that basically fixes a gap or a hole with the previous coach, the previous administration. That's usually what happens.
Plug the dam.
Yes, and you do it at the expense of what the other guy was probably good at. And then you just keep repeating the cycle over and over. But the problem with Jimbo Fisher was a little bit of lack of institutional control, culture issues, and just on the field lack of development. Recruiting was not an issue. Yeah, recruiting was not an issue.
No, it was not.
So
you got the NIL. You got the money.
Yes. And if you're A&M right now, you're thinking, I need a guy that is like, I'm not looking for the guy that's the best recruiter. I'm looking for the guy that can guarantee me on the field success and can actually develop talent. Mike Elko fits that category. He can develop talent, at least on the defensive side. He's a former DC. It makes so much sense. Former DC at A&M. If I was A&M, he'd probably be number one on my list. There's a couple other guys that I would put on there too, but I think we're in agreement there. Mike Norvell.
No shot. He's top dog in the ACC. He's top dog ACC. Oof. They are not going to go back to Tallahassee.
I think that is funny.
That is too, yeah, it's the Thanos meme. Where did that lead you back to me? And it's just the city of Tallahassee sitting there. No shot. You know, he's finally built. He's built a good thing out there. He's using the transfer portal and NIL so well. And with the way they're going and the way Clemson's going, I mean, they could finally be the top dog in the conference again. And look, naturally, they're going to playoff. They're going to the playoff unless they absolutely blow it down the stretch.
I throw this one in the unlikely category. Him and Lane, unlikely, but it's kind of funny throwing his name in there.
Yes,
Dan Lanning. This one is spicy. Oof.
Man, obviously the SEC experience with Georgia. Thing is, he's recruiting his butt off at Oregon. They're competitive. Honestly, in my opinion, they're going to win the conference. I really like their chances in that rematch with Washington. Most likely will make the playoff. And then you're going into the Big Ten positioned very well. And as we know, the Big Ten pays just as competitively as the SEC. I don't know why you would leave Oregon, where you are just living your best life right now, having a ton of fun, to come to all the headaches that A&M and the boosters present. So is it possible he'd want to make that next step? Yes, but I would be surprised given just how well things are going in Oregon right now. And their trajectory.
Dan Lanning is quietly building a juggernaut at Oregon right now. I totally agree with you. Like, they are legitimately, based on recruiting, based on the development so far, the on-field success, they're positioning themselves to be in that maybe Michigan, Ohio State tier in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Which I don't think many people thought they could get there, but I think they are positioning themselves that way. And I agree. It would seem like, man, you're going to leave all this that you spent the last 2 years building. But I don't know, man. I think this one, I think there's some smoke to this one, man. I think Dan Lanning will entertain this. I think he will, and that's because it's an SEC job and the money. I think he will entertain it. I don't know if he will actually take it, but I think there is more smoke to this than Oregon fans will want to admit, because right now I see on social media, Oregon fans are like, oh, are you kidding me? Enough of this. Like, don't even, like, how dare you throw his name in that bucket? Sorry, guys, but I mean, didn't Mario Cristobal leave you for an ACC program, Miami? Didn't
it is at least his
Willie Taggart leave you?
Yes.
Willie Taggart left them for Florida State. I mean, this has literally happened to them twice in the last
chip to the NFL.
Chip to the NFL. Like, I'm sorry, guys, but this has happened to you multiple times over the last decade plus. So I would hate to see it happen again. I do not want to see Dan Lanning leave, but I think that A&M has somewhat of a decent shot to actually land him. Dan Lanning, I think he would go back to the SEC if he had a chance, if it was this type of job. But we'll see. We'll see. I don't know Dan Lanning personally, but I think there's more smoke to this one than most people would want to admit or hope for. All right. Let's go a little bit quicker here. Jeff Traylor.
Yeah. Hey, he's the wholesome girlfriend I talked about, man. I mean,
UTSA head coach, by the way.
Yep. 2 double-digit win seasons. He is 6-0 in American play since they've made the conference jump. I mean, when you can take a team like UTSA, who I can promise you is not on my radar, well, like within the last few years, and make them relevant and win. They won CUSA last year, right? I know 2 years ago.
They did.
I think they lost to Western
They won
Kentucky.
It back 2 years in a row.
Okay, I got that mixed up. Then my apologies. Point is, yeah. So you've won conference titles with this team. I think it'd be a pretty nifty hire, but I can understand the fans pushing back because it's not enough flash.
I agree. I think Jeff Traylor deserves a Power 5 job. I don't know if it's going to be the caliber of Texas A&M. I don't know if he'll get that high level of a job, but I mean, I agree with you. I think it should be entertained, but this is unlikely to happen. Chris Kleinman, head coach of Kansas State. I think this would be a good hire. You have a guy that is a program, has a track record of being a program developer and a talent developer.
I mean, he won the Big 12 last year.
Right.
People forget that. Like, they won the conference.
These Big 12 schools, they do not recruit at a national title level. They're not even close. Kansas State does not even come close to recruiting anywhere towards the level where its success says it should be. And that speaks to quality coaching. Chris Kleinman is one of the best coaches in the entire country in terms of developing talent. I think this would be a good hire, but again, I don't know if this is like as sexy as like a Dan Lanning or a Mike Elko or a Lane Kiffin. You know what I mean?
Also, Shoob, from his perspective, Kansas State could absolutely run the new Big 12 potentially. So do you want to give up that opportunity to basically get back into the mud with Texas and OU and just have an absolute Mount Everest to climb to
again, we talk about fixing the problems that the previous head coach was fired for. Chris Kleinman.
Oh, he would.
Develops talent, culture. There will be no toxic culture like there was previously. I think this would be a good hire. I don't know if this would be the one that A&M would go to. Cliff Kingsbury.
No, man literally went on a sabbatical to Thailand.
Dude, yeah, man, I don't know about. I mean, I don't know. It might happen, but like, I don't know about this one. Seems like a Hail Mary. I don't know about that.
He was Johnny's OC, so like it's basically the member berries. Hey, remember Johnny Manziel? Remember this? Remember the Heisman? But no, if Cliff couldn't do it at Texas Tech, I mean, what's A&M going to make any difference? So I say no.
I say unlikely there. And then lastly, Kalen DeBoer. I think I would put this one next to Mike Elko and Kleinman, as I think this would be a guaranteed great hire.
Yes.
I think Kalen DeBoer, especially with A&M not being able to put a lot of points on the board, if you want a coach that is going to guarantee you to develop offensive talent and score points, he's done that years over years at multiple different programs. Like, Kalen DeBoer is guaranteed to have success wherever he goes. This would be a great hire for Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M would be an upgrade over Washington. I hate to say it, Husky fans, but I think Kalen DeBoer would consider this an upgrade of a job over Washington.
Oh, absolutely. Just in terms of resources, where you're recruiting. I mean, it's got to be hard to get kids to come all the way up to Seattle, Washington to visit. Not to disparage the area. I know it's beautiful up there, and you actually have seasons and different weather. But being in Texas A&M and just being in the Lone Star State, it's just easier to recruit. And I mean, what I would really do is I'd walk in and be like, yeah, you saw what I did with Penix, and I had 2 NFL wide receivers. Yeah, like, be a part of that. So it'd be the easiest pitch in the world to sell. And Shoob, I mean, I'm curious, does he go as Penix goes? Once Penix takes off for NFL aspirations, does he say, oh boy, well, that was fun. And we're going to the Big Ten now. Ooh, maybe I need to get out of Dodge. So it's an interesting one, and would definitely be an A+ if they brought him in.
I would agree. I think Mike Elko, Kalen DeBoer, Chris Kleinman, I would give them A+ hires. And if you're an SEC West School, or I guess they're getting rid of division. So if you're an
SEC,
LSU fan,
SEC pod.
if you're an LSU fan, if you're an Alabama fan, et cetera, if you're a Texas fan, if you're an Oklahoma fan, if I see Texas A&M hire Chris Kleinman, Mike Elko, or Kalen DeBoer, I'm thinking to myself, uh-oh. Those hires make me scared if I'm one of those schools. Those guys are guaranteed to have success there. The question is, will they hire them? Who knows? We'll see. But I think they're going to be smart about this, man. I think they're going to get one of those guys personally. So we'll see. If you're an Aggie fan, let us know who you want. Who is your ideal head coach? Because you are going to have your pick of the litter this winter. All right. We talked a lot about a couple of topics, man. We're already almost 40 minutes in here. We talked about Michigan, Penn State, and Texas A&M. It is very important. So we got to pick up the pace, man. Yeah, exactly. Time to hit the red eye. So speaking of Kalen DeBoer in Washington fans, let's not talk about the Texas A&M job opening. Let's talk about your team, because they are now 10-0. A big win for the Huskies, 35-28 over Utah. Washington is now 10-0 for just the second time in school history. Man, this was a great win for the Huskies. I was a little bit worried about this for them, not going to lie. And halfway through that game, it got a little dicey at times. Utah gave them a good fight, as we expected. But in the end, Washington was able to sort of make the second half adjustments, shut them down. They shut Utah's offense down the second half, and Penix looked better. Yeah, they shut him out in the second half, right?
They made the plays when they need to. Rome Odunze, man, him and
first round pick,
and
baby,
Polk and Jalen Polk, right? Yeah, I mean, are just incredible. And I think McMillan's been hurt, but just that entire offense is great. But it was the defense. I mean, they should have had a pick six, a really dumb move, but they somehow got a safety out of that. And they got a pick on the last drive to seal it. And Utah is one of those grind you out teams and take you to the wire. So this was a good win for Washington. It's good it was played in Seattle. And this is just great. Y'all took their over. This hits on the over. Of course, we all have them winning the conference. Do we all have them win the conference?
We had them winning the conference preseason. If I had to change my pick right now, I'd pick Oregon
as well.
Yeah.
No, solid win. It was a great game. And like you said, defense just absolutely shut them out in the second half, which we don't think of Washington's defense really too much this season. So big shout out to them for bringing the wood.
This is the dream season, man. This is the dream season. Husky fans, I say it every week now, take it all in. Like, this could be one of the best teams you'll ever have, and it's a team that can legitimately make the college football playoff and win the Pac-12. I will say this, though. You know what post-game winning expectancy says?
Oh, man. Based on how this one was played. I'm going to say Washington in the 50s.
It says Utah should have won this game 66% of the time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I know Utah on a down-for-down basis was doing pretty well, but there was some stuff that definitely didn't go their way in terms of the variance stuff. But hey, credit to Washington, man. Credit to Washington. They made the plays at the right time.
Like, if Utah had Cam Rising in the gang, I mean, the fact that they're even 7-3 now, I mean, that alone is amazing.
It is. I mean, I thought Washington was at risk of losing this game, man. Like we said, they were a 9.5-point favorite, and I thought that spread was a little too high. I mean, I guess if you take away the pick six that was dropped at the 1 yard line, maybe they should have won. Maybe they should have covered that spread. But hindsight's 2020.
Can you imagine losing your playoff spot on that? I mean,
yeah. I mean, they did end up getting a safety right after that, though. Correct. So that was like a 5-point swing. Because
but hey, I mean,
7 minus 2.
Utah had a chance at the end. Granted, they didn't do anything, and they stopped them. But still, I mean, when they blocked that field goal, I was like, oh goodness.
Yeah, down success rate. Utah 49%, Washington 42%. That's usually pretty sticky. But I think that's a huge determining factor of this post-game win expectancy. But hey, credit to Washington, man. Sometimes you got to figure out a way to win those close games. That's what they've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And now they got to go to Corvallis next week, man. That's going to be tough. We're going to pick that game, by the way.
Dude,
but
are they the West Coast TCU, man? Like probably better. Like
they're a little better than last year's
weapons.
TCU.
But
Yeah.
the games, man, they are playing some bangers.
They are definitely getting TCU one score results from last year to this year. Washington is. They are
But
definitely
this team would beat last year's TCU by 2 touchdowns, in my opinion.
oof. By 2 touchdowns. I don't know about that, but
Well, heck,
I
I mean,
think
look what Georgia did.
yeah. TCU also beat Michigan last year, which a lot of people seem to forget, and I think Michigan fans especially seem to
Well,
forget that you literally lost to TCU in the
I don't
semifinals.
forget
Just
that. That's probably one of the greatest picks in ZKS history. I mean, I've never looked back, but that's like a top that and like Auburn in 2019 over Bama are like top 5 ever ZKS money line hits.
I think I'd take 2023 Washington by a field goal over 2022 TCU on a neutral field. I
That's
don't think
fair.
it's that big of a difference.
Okay. They
Yeah,
did have a really good defense, that TCU team. I
they did.
mean, so that's fair. Thanks for taking me back. I get a little excited, Shoops. Thanks for taking me back to earth sometimes with
But I'm here for, man. We all balance each other out on the Saturday
yes.
Scholars. Missouri. How about this game, bro? We picked this one. This was a 1.5 point spread. In fact, a lot of sharp bettors really like the Tennessee side of this one. I played a little bit of Tennessee money line. Unfortunately, my personal money, even though I picked Missouri on the podcast on Sunday, and then the week goes by and I start hearing some stuff from the pundits that I
Injury.
respect, and I'm like, oh great, maybe I should have picked Tennessee. I'm hearing all this Tennessee yada yada, and then 36-7. This was also in Columbia, man. Like
Como.
this was not even
Dude,
close. This was a beatdown.
dude, Como's sneaky. Like I saw LSU in there in October, man. Like, I mean, like on TV, of course, but dude, Como can catch you if you ain't ready.
Missouri's just a good team, man. Like they're not an elite team, but they are a good team. They gave Georgia one hell of a fight that I think looks really good, especially considering how Georgia just absolutely splattered Ole Miss this past week. Missouri is a legitimately good team. I think Missouri, you could argue they are a top 10 quality team
Yes.
that just has 2 losses and had to play Georgia, who just has a superior roster talent over them. I mean, and they gave Georgia a hell of a fight. I mean, it's really hard to do. I think this Missouri team is very quality. This is a legitimately good team that has been developed. And they got to show it against Tennessee. We talked about this game. This was the quote unquote second place bowl for the SEC East. And I think it's not even a question now. Missouri is by and far the second best team in the SEC East. And this is just a great season for them, man. And I feel like they're not getting talked about enough because everyone's like, oh, well, you can't beat Georgia. You're not going to win the SEC East. We don't care. Like, that's not what college football is about. You have to level expectations. And the expectations for Missouri is, yeah, you're not going to beat Georgia. You're not going to win the SEC East. But if you can compete with Georgia, be close with Georgia, finish second in the East, and have potentially what's looking like a 10-win season, and maybe go to a New Year's Six bowl game, for Missouri, that is very, very hard to do, and that should be appreciated.
I mean, since Eli got there, I mean, let's throw COVID out. I'm not even counting COVID. You know, their win range was 6 to 7 wins a year. Or more, sorry, I'm looking at this year too. 6 wins. They were averaging just a bowl game, and just now they have been able to put it together with recruiting wins. You know, Luther Burden. Everyone forgets, I think, that Theo Weiss is a former 5-star who they got from Oklahoma via the portal. Eli, you know, love him or hate him, I know he's a very polarizing guy in the college football realm. He has been able to leverage the portal as well as land some recruiting wins. And I don't mean to be repetitive, but it is a big deal because selling someone to come to Como, to come to Columbia, Missouri, that is not easy. Like what? Oh, let's all go to St. Louis and then look at the Arch and watch the Cardinals. I mean, it's a hard pitch. And here you are in the SEC East with powers like Georgia, Florida, Tennessee. Kentucky's been on the upswing. South Carolina depends on the year. Vandy is a win. Is that it? I think that covers the whole East, I want to say. And you're able to do this well. I mean, they had LSU on the ropes, could have won that game, kind of just, you know, fell apart at the end because Jaden Daniels is just a god. And it's been an incredible year. It's the best they've done since 13-14. And 13, that's when they beat Georgia, actually. And those were both double-digit win teams. And barring disaster, I mean, it's looking like they're going to get 10 wins in the regular season, which is just amazing. And the Kansas State win, everyone forgets about because Kansas State's been middle of the
That's a
pack
great
in the
win.
Big 12.
You've seen
Phenomenal
Kansas
win.
State. Kansas State is a pretty good team that has just had a few close losses. Like the Kansas State
Mm-hmm.
is definitely a top 15 caliber team. Missouri got that win at home. Like that is a good win on the resume. We just didn't realize it at the time, but we were watching two top 10 to top 15 caliber teams playing each other that week when we saw Missouri versus K-State. I don't think either of them were ranked at the
Mm-hmm.
time, but we didn't know it, but that was two top 10 to top 15 teams playing each other. That is a very good win on the resume for Missouri. And this blowout win over Tennessee is very good for the resume. I mean, I feel very happy for their fans, man. I think they definitely they deserve this, and I don't think they're getting talked about enough just because they have Georgia in their division. But I think that just, that's kind of what sucks about college football, man, is like you got one of these Goliaths in your division. It kind of dilutes the perception of the team because I mean, how much better is this team or worse is this team than those like 2012, 2013, 2014 teams with Gary Pinkel, when they first got into the
I
SEC?
I would say quarterback. I mean, I always thought what his name, James Franklin. I thought he was kind of a better quarterback maybe than Cook. I want to say they just had kind of another like beast running back. They had really good defensive lines. I remember
They did.
they had some wide receiver studs. I remember Dorial Green Beckham, man.
Yeah.
I forget if he
He
started
didn't
there and
really he
transferred
didn't
out.
really pan out though. Like
No.
he was a 5-star recruit. Yeah.
And I think he transferred out, I want to say. But they beat Georgia during that time. They beat Florida both times. I mean,
But
again, went to the SEC East.
yes,
Won the SEC
they won
East.
the SEC East back-to-back years in 13 and 14 when that was their second and third year in the SEC respectively since coming over from the Big 12. So my point is,
Everybody forgets that.
yeah, my point is like the only difference between those teams, which are probably heralded and regarded very high in the eyes of Missouri fans and maybe people that know college football, is those teams didn't have Kirby Smart's Georgia in their way. They had the SEC East was a horrible division in those years. Like there was a run there from like 2013 through 2017 where the SEC East sucked. Like it actually was not good. And listen, I'm not trying to downgrade Missouri's success back then, but like you only won the division because there was Georgia hadn't realized its full potential and Florida was down. But my point is, I think this year's team is on par or just as good, maybe just slightly worse than those teams back in 2013 and 14. The only difference is they're not going to be perceived as a championship caliber team or a team that can win the SEC because Georgia is Georgia. Like there's just a giant wall in your way. That's the only difference. And I hate that just skews the perception so much, but that's how college football works and that's how people's minds work. So just my little side rant, but hey, I'm just trying to get in the heads of Missouri fans and speak for the ones that, maybe think of this and maybe feel a little underappreciated, but that's just my 2 cents as a neutral observer.
I mean,
Well,
both your losses are the top teams, and whatever New Year's Six Bowl they're in, I'm picking them.
I agree. They're playing very well. Shout out to Cody Schrader as well. I
Yeah.
love watching that dude play. How about
He's
some
one's
more
phenomenal.
SEC rundown, man? It's time to hit the treadmill. You ready to go? Because man, we're
Let's
running.
hit it.
Let's go. SEC rundown. We're gonna go conference by conference here. Georgia 52, Ole Miss 17. Now you would have thought that maybe we gave a little bit more, credence to this game. Maybe put this as one of our headline games we like to talk about for the first 30, 45 minutes or so of the podcast. But I mean, this was a splattering. Ole Miss with their classic scripted drive to start the game. They always score on the first drive of the game because it's scripted. And it was like, okay, time to live bet Georgia. Bang, 52-17. It's not even competitive.
Yeah. I mean, big game lane. I'm not surprised. And that's all I have to say. I'm not surprised. Georgia's Georgia. And that's it.
Listen, Georgia is playing better though. Like this was
Oh yeah.
looking like last year's Georgia team in 2021 Georgia. Like this is kind of scary if you're a non-Georgia fan, is that this team seems to be starting to play its best football towards the end of the season.
You beat me to it. They're peaking. That's scary.
It is
That's
scary.
scary. And Halloween's over. So
the time to get them. Listen, if Ole Miss had played Georgia in September or early October, they might have been able to clip them, but you played them at the wrong time, and it was not even close. And yeah, Ole Miss, Ole Miss is sort of Penn State light of the SEC.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm sorry, guys,
Yes.
but Lane
But not as
Kiffin,
talented, interesting enough. But
Lane
yeah.
Kiffin, that is true. I think Lane Kiffin is maximizing Ole Miss right now.
Oh yeah.
I
I mean,
I'd say it, but that's just what it is. Like, and the fans always think there's always a next step to take, another unlevel to lock. But like, Lane Kiffin's a great
you
coach.
had your chance. You had your chance when you beat Alabama and you couldn't defend Arkansas on 4th and 25. That
Mm.
was your chance.
That was what, 2015?
Yeah, 15 or 14. I want to say 15 because I saw that in my apartment that I was in 15. So it was 2015 that happened.
Yeah, with what was his name at quarterback?
Oh my, for who? For
Ole
Miss or
Miss.
for Ole
Ole
Miss might
Miss.
have. Oh, that's they had oh my gosh, because it was
I
Bo
kind of hated him.
Wallace. It
It
was Bo
was it Bo
Wallace, and
Wallace?
then
There
they
was another guy that
no
was
Bo
I
Wallace was before when they
yeah. I can
we know
picture
who
his
it is.
face.
That's
Yeah.
but let's not get hung up on that. I'll
He
say
he
it if
was
it
not.
comes
I'll say
to
this.
me.
He was not the most. He wasn't the type of guy that you would that would strike me as a guy to attend church on Sundays. So I'll just say that
No,
did not strike me as that. I think Ole Miss fans know what I'm talking about. I can't think of his name.
Chad
All right,
Kelly,
Jack. Oh my God,
Chad Kelly, baby,
Chad Kelly. Yep. Yeah. That. Yeah. All right.
character.
Anyways, Jane Daniels, man, UF LSU. We didn't talk about this game. We didn't pick this game. You have me. I'm a Florida Gator alum. Went to undergraduate there. Gonzo also went to undergraduate there, but then he went and got his law degree from LSU Law School. So, and you can judge by wearing his hat, which you can, and his shirt too. You could see which side of the fence he's on these days. Gonzo, what was your perspective on this game?
Jane Daniels to win the Heisman. For
Agreed.
that's it. I mean, UF got theirs, which I knew they would because LSU's defense is atrocious. LSU got the one stop that they needed, and Jaden Daniels broke off 2 runs. Where like, dude, I get tired running the
That was
second base in
sexy
softball,
as hell.
and Jaden runs 80 yards, no problem. He's so good. And I really hope that LSU can just beat A&M to finish 9-3 because I just don't know who else you're going to give the Heisman to. I mean, he made history yesterday. He is like if LSU did not have him, they at least have 2 more losses probably.
Easily.
And I don't call me biased, call me anything you want. He's the best player in America, and he deserves the Heisman. And that's my TED talk.
Listen, I'm a Florida fan that does not have any love lost for LSU, and I think he should be the Heisman favorite right now. He is the best player in the country. That was disgusting. His running ability in the open field was just absolutely disgusting. If you don't believe us, go watch Jaden Daniels highlights. Even watch highlights from the UF game. Like that man is the best player in the country. Penix is close. Bo Nix is close. Like those guys, Caleb Williams, like they are close seconds. But Jaden Daniels should be the Heisman favorite and cannot hold his defense against him. I mean, Lamar Jackson won the Heisman Trophy with 3 losses. Robert Griffin won it with 3 losses. They didn't win any conference championships. They didn't.
Tebow too. I mean, that team,
Yeah,
the
Tebow won in
team,
07. Right. Yeah,
was
Tebow won in
Capital One Bowl.
07. Right. So the point is, like, there's guys that have won the Heisman on teams that haven't competed for the national championship. Like Jaden Daniels should be the favorite, but I totally get it. There still is that chance for Penix and Bo Nix and Caleb Williams and those guys to, well, not Caleb Williams, but Penix and Nix definitely have the chance in the
And
national spotlight to take it.
I can honestly, I'll tell you, I can honestly live with if either of those two do win it. I will be upset and I will be salty, but I will understand it. I will understand it if the media and the writers do decide to award them on winning teams. But again, what Jaden Daniels is doing is very superhuman. And I'm getting to the point where I'm hoping the Saints can find a way to get their hands on him.
Well, see, that's the thing is I don't know how much of an NFL ceiling does he have because like is his size gonna be held against him? Because listen, man, I used to be a skinny mofo back in high school. I was a twig. And Jaden Daniels kind of looks like what I would look like if I put on a football uniform and played quarterback when I was like 18.
I'll say with Jaden, if you could use him how Baltimore uses. He's listed as 6'4". You wouldn't think he was 6'4", but yeah,
He's
he's
6'4".
6'4".
Wow.
I mean, now that might be a little liberal. Maybe that's a
Those are
little
always
overstating
very
it,
liberal
but it says
measurements. Yeah.
6'4", 210 for what that's worth. But if you could utilize
What about
him
that?
like Lamar Jackson's being utilized, you know, maybe Shaden can carve himself out a nice little NFL career, which would be really cool. But all I know is I was really glad to see him bounce back from the Bama hit and be fine, because if you had a serious injury, you would not be running how he was. So we'll see what the voters say. Either way, we probably got 2 more games of watching him, because I would be beyond shocked completely if this man plays in the bowl game. There's just no reason to.
I'd bet my dollar that Jane Daniels is not 200 pounds. I'd bet my dollar on that.
It's all
But
muscle, man.
yeah, and you know what? Listen, man. I need. What do you have next? Abilene Christian, and then A&M at home, or
It's Georgia
Georgia State.
State, which is kind of on the
Yeah,
on the decline, and then yeah,
A&M
A&M at
without
home,
Jimbo, without a coach.
who's in quit mode. So
Listen, I have an over 8.5 for the sake of my wallet. Get it done, LSU.
it,
Listen,
I took that with you too, man, when you told me to get on it.
you
So
have you lost that A&M loss last year was egregious. Avenge that. They don't have a head
dude, I'm
coach.
telling you,
Please,
they're
please.
gonna get
It's
after
in
him
Death
in Tiger
Valley.
Stadium. They're gonna
It's
get
in
after
yeah.
him.
I would hope so, especially for my wallet. All right.
It's,
So Bama smokes Kentucky. I mean, we don't need to spend much on this game. Bama versus Kentucky. Listen, my theory here is that you're with me on this. Kentucky kind of sells against these teams, man. Like and you know what? I kind of respect it, because when you have
dude,
listen, when you have Mark Stoops' contract, you can kind of get away with doing that, because it's like, why am I going to bother like having my team get all beaten and bruised and emotionally battered against those teams that I know I'm probably not going to beat anyway, when I can just go and take care of all the other teams that are on my caliber and my level of recruiting talent.
yeah,
And you can still win 8 games a year and get that nice contract boost, that rollover every year.
a good
I'd kind of
season
be
of
doing the same
Kentucky
thing.
is 10 wins. I mean, there was no shot. Talent for talent. They did not have a chance against Alabama. Shout out Jalen Milroe. He's continuing to improve, by the way. Just a
Dude,
touchdown machine on the ground. And we talk about Georgia. He's peaking at the right time. And
yeah.
I am so ready for peak Georgia versus peak Jalen Milroe. Oh my gosh. That is going to be very exciting. And
Yeah.
it's guaranteed. So it's going to be very exciting in a couple of weeks.
It's official. Georgia versus Alabama in the SEC championship game. Yeah. Jalen Milroe, man, I think that you think he might be playing his way into getting at least an invitation to New York? Like, he's been playing that well
I
the
think
last few
so.
weeks. He could
I
get
think
invited.
I think so. I think you can get an invite. I mean, because it's like, okay, real quick, Jaden, Penix, Nix, you could add him in since always kind of fell out of the running, and then maybe you send Marvin Harrison as that fifth. I mean, because the field varies. Sometimes, like a good bit of them travel. Sometimes it's just 3 of them that travel. So in this kind of wide open field, I mean, they should just say screw it and invite like 7 guys to go out there to New York. So I think you get an invite. It wouldn't surprise me.
One last crazy SEC result. Auburn 48, Arkansas 10. Dude, what the hell
Oof,
happened there?
that was one dude, I thought because Arkansas beat Florida that they had gotten right. No, that was such fool's gold. Clearly this team has, I'll say, yeah, I mean, this team's quit. I didn't think, Auburn's not good on offense.
No.
They scored 45 on you.
You should not be letting Auburn drop 48 on you. That is not that team. I was not able to watch it, but I can just tell that Auburn or Arkansas quit. Like, and yeah, there's rumors right now. You mentioned this offline right before we recorded that Sam Pittman might get the can by the end of the season. I mean, after performance like that, it might be justified, but I don't know.
I don't like it because I think your ceiling at Arkansas is like, if you're really on par, 10 wins, I don't know who you're going to get who's better, especially with how the league changing. You're directly competing with Texas A&M at the food trough. So I personally think you should let Pittman stay and then just try to really get it shored up at OC and try to fix things. But
Yeah.
Again, it's not my team in the doldrums right now, so it's easier to say on the outside looking in, of course. But I think, but I think Pittman should get brought on somewhere if he is fired, because he is a heck of an O-line coach for sure.
Without a
Came from
doubt.
Georgia, for goodness sake.
I'm in agreement with you there. How about some ACC? Let's talk some Atlantic Coast Conference, man.
Let's
FSU 27, Miami 20. This game was competitive. I mean, we picked Florida State on the spread. Probably would have shied away from that if I knew that Keon Coleman wasn't going to play and that Johnny Wilson was not 100% healthy for this game. But, either way, Florida State, I think, Miami, credit, man. I wasn't able to watch this one fully, but Emory Williams got hurt.
Yeah. Right? Oh, dude, it's some hyperextension stuff. Like, he went and extended for the 4th down and he got it, but he absolutely messed up his arm. I mean, that season ending. And then can you blame Tyler Van Dyke, who is probably hurt? He's like, hey, okay, hurt. You're in. You got to lead us down and tie the game. And they're not going to go for 2 because it's Mario. So, so not only that, but all that to say, classic FSU Miami game. It was a great game, fun game to watch. Miami actually got some stops, because they got some legit dudes on that team. But I think they're going to quit now. I mean, this was the Super Bowl. Like, this was your chance to take down your arch rival. And I'm telling you, that BC win in Chestnut, man, I've been riding that all season, and I think it's going to come to fruition.
Dude, you beat me to it, man. The Gonzo prophecy of Chestnut Hill on the last week of the regular season is the prophecy may be true.
Man, I still think Miami's under might cash too, man. I think it was like 7.5 or something. And
yeah, they got 4 losses in the bank now, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
And they got to go play Louisville this week.
Oh, I mean, after that, they'll quit. They will quit after that if they can't.
And then you go up to at BC to end the year, which is just
that's never
filthy, disgusting move by the ACC schedule makers there.
They knew.
They knew.
But good grinded out win for FSU. You take next week off. I mean, obviously they got North Alabama, but you take next week off and then hope that UF doesn't clip you for just a disastrous ending potentially.
I really quick on FSU.
Of course.
I feel like that team may have peaked in week 1.
Don't remind me. How could you? No, that's fair. That's fair.
The second half of that LSU game in week 1, I think, was Florida State's peak, because that team in the second half against LSU looked disgusting. And since then, I mean, you had to go to overtime to beat not the greatest Clemson team ever, and then you're sort of flirting with Boston College, kind of messing around with a Miami team that is like got skeletons at quarterback. I mean, I know the receivers weren't healthy, but like FSU is not. FSU is they are a great team. They are a college football playoff caliber team. Or are they a national championship winning team? I do not think so right now. But if you're an FSU fan, you're probably hoping that maybe there's still a ceiling to reach that hasn't been unlocked yet. Maybe get back to that week 1 versus LSU level of play. But we'll see, man.
Get everybody healthy.
It is possible, man. But it is time to start peaking, and they are not peaking right now. All right, more ACC real quick here, running down the line. UNC with a thrilling double overtime win against Duke in that one. I was able to watch this game the 4th quarter. Man, this was actually a great game, man.
Duke had it, man.
Duke, yeah, I mean, listen, Duke, Grayson Loftus looks like a legitimately solid quarterback. He was the backup or the 3rd string. I forget. He either was the backup and he was hurt, or he was named the 3rd string in favor of Beelan, which doesn't make sense to me because Loftus actually looks like legit. And with the way that Riley Leonard is looking right now with health wise, like Loftus is the best option for Duke. Like Loftus is the best quarterback on the team right now. Like that dude looked very solid to me. And Drake May also balled out in this one. Omarion Hampton also balled out. I mean, this was great play. Fans stormed the field. It was a terrific game. Like, if you want to watch highlights and just watch a good college football game with a field storming at the end between 2 rivals, this was it. It was a great game. Shout out to UNC. And shout out to Duke, man. They were more competitive when they weren't expected to be. Louisville survives UVA. This was a Thursday night. This was a Thursday night sicko mode game here. And they barely survived UVA, man. I think UVA had a lead on them going into the fourth quarter. Like
Yeah.
Louisville, they like to ride close to the sun, man. They
Oh
show up against the
yes.
good teams, and then they really flirt with disaster. I mean, Pitt is 2-8. They are one of Pitt's 2 wins. Like, come on, get a grip, man. Like, you gotta put more emphasis on beating the bad teams because you might lose to some of them. That's
You
all I
gotta
got to say
just.
there.
I mean, they're not good enough to just show up and win. You actually have to try.
Exactly. But Louisville can clinch the ACC title game berth versus FSU if they beat Miami this week at Hard Rock. We're going to pick that game. So Louisville's still looking good, man, for ACC championship hopes. And they have a very, very fringe outside chance at the college football playoff if they win
You,
out.
you beat me to it. I said if things get really wacky, there is a sliver of a chance.
Clemson back on track. Listen, Clemson, if there's one team they know how to be, they know how to beat Georgia Tech.
Yep.
For whatever
Death
reason,
taxes
they
and
they
Tigers
just
beating the
dominate. They
Jackets.
know how to beat Georgia Tech. I don't know what it is. How about let's go into the Pac-12, man? Oregon dispatches USC to put your wording into that one. I was able to watch this game. I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit salty on the backdoor from USC there at the end. I had Oregon minus 14.5. We all had it. I had it with personal money. I will say this. I'll give credit to USC. They definitely were more competitive than I thought they were going to be. The
Yep.
defense still sucks. Oregon really did kind of sit on the ball and try to milk this one out in the second half from what I was watching. I think if they really
Just get
wanted
out of
to, they
there.
could have won by 3 scores. But USC, I mean, Caleb Williams, it is kind of hard to fade Caleb Williams, man. Like Caleb Williams made some just insane plays to keep USC in the game. And Oregon was still clearly the better team and definitely milked this one out.
Kudos to Caleb still trying. Like, yeah, now 4 losses and you're still playing your heart out. So it makes me think that after that whole like owning 1% of the team, like it almost makes me think that was kind of smoke. And like he's still a competitor and playing hard. So I like to see that.
Shout out to Colorado for getting well, they didn't get the win, but they had a close game against Arizona, which with the way that U of A
Quality
has been
loss.
playing.
Quality
Yeah.
loss.
A quality loss. That's the word I was looking for. It was a
No,
quality
I think
loss. They played better than expected against Arizona. Let's call it like it is.
well, they did. And Zona on the other side, I mean, was it 7-3 now? I mean, Jed Fish, I don't think he'll get it, but like that's coach of the year material right there. I mean, you took a team that I didn't even think was going to bowl game, and if everything pans out, you could finish 9-3. I mean, and then if you mess around with the bowl game, that's double digits. I mean, that's insane. So great win for the Wildcats. Competitive loss for Colorado.
You want a couple yikes? You want a couple Pac-12 yikes here? You know
Yeah,
what? Since Zan
I
isn't
do.
here, I got Zan texted me. He's not going to be able to make it. He's sending his picks, but so that's fine. But Zan's not here, so we're gonna do some Xanny bars right here, right now. I got 2 Pac-12 Xanny bars to give out. One Xanny bar to UCLA for losing to Arizona State.
Bad
Arizona
loss.
State, who lost 55-3 to Utah last week, turns around and beats UCLA.
Bunch of backups.
And this was in LA, right?
Yeah.
It
Well, I
it
mean, it's
was.
not. There's no fan advantage there, but
Yes,
I'm
I
pretty sure
do you
this was a
think
home
do you think the
loss.
quarterback roulette is going to bite UCLA, or has it already bitten UCLA?
Yes, I mean, honestly, Utah might have scarred him, and you don't want to like ruin the kid's career, but you were better off either running with Moore or you brought Schlee in for a reason. Run with
Schlee
him.
I think Schlee is solid. I was surprised he wasn't the starter in the first place. I just,
That
Chip Kelly's great football mind. I think there's more political
they'll
reasons. We
remember.
talked about this a few weeks ago. I think there's more. The rumor is there's more political reasons as to why Dante Moore got the nod at the beginning of the year. And I don't know what Colin Schlee has been doing to be named the
Well,
third string there.
I mean, remember Oregon flipped him pretty late in his recruiting process, so I'm curious if there were some assurances made to ensure that
Yes,
flip.
that's exactly what I'm implying there. But hey, man, shout out to Arizona State. They've gotten close and close and close and close against good teams, and they can't win those games, and they finally do. So that's a great win for Kenny Dillingham. I think Arizona State is a is a buy low, stock up arrow going into next year. I think
Yes.
Dillingham is the right guy there. I believe in Arizona State with Dillingham. I definitely do. I think there's better days ahead for them as a program, 100%. And then my second yikes slash Xanny Bars got to go to Washington State. Oh, Washington State. Remember when you were 4-0? You had just beaten Oregon State. We made a little bit of a short about Cam Ward as a potential Heisman contender. You were ranked at the top 25. And since then, you have taken not one, not two, not three, not four, not five, but 6 L's in a row. What the hell, man? What the hell, Wazoo? They lost to
I
Cal 42-39.
Man, I should have picked Cal too. I thought about it, but I'm like, oh, it's Cal. It's just inexcusable. You've wasted whatever potential you had with Cam Ward. I do not know what happened once you got into October, but clearly something. Halloween must be taken really serious out there because they have been scared to play good football forever now. I mean, it just sucks. I was high on them with how last year had ended and with Cam Ward, and they have really just had some really bad losses. And honestly, I think Colorado could beat them this upcoming weekend.
Yes, I would agree. And I mean, Colorado, I haven't looked at the line yet. Colorado might be favored in that game. Haven't looked at it yet. Let's dive into some Big 12 action, man. Keeping the treadmill running here. How about Texas beating TCU? This one looked like it was non-competitive, and then all of a sudden, Texas with a 28-6 lead going into the fourth quarter just almost blows it at the very end. And I mean, I don't get it, man. I don't know why Texas they're kind of doing the same thing they did last year. They're just sort of laying over in the second half, in particular the fourth quarter, especially the last 2 weeks. 2 weeks in a row now, you've almost let Kansas State and TCU come back in the game and beat you. They're kind of flirting with fire right now. Ewers is back, so you don't have that excuse now with Malik Murphy turning the ball over 5 times. But the point is, Texas definitely has been trending in the downward direction, I think, ever since Red River. And
yes,
is there a buy low point here on Texas? What do you think? I mean, for a buy low point, I'd say being in sole possession of the first place in the Big 12, having a head-to-head win on your resume over Alabama, and still being a college football playoff contender and the favorite to win the Big 12 by a good margin now, that's a pretty solid buy low point, if you ask me. Oh, that's all I gotta say.
I still like them to win the conference. To go to Fort Worth in November, that is a tough draw there. It's a rivalry game. It's the last time these two are going to play for the foreseeable future. So I'd buy low on Texas. I still would.
Though we can't not mention that they did lose Jonathan Brooks for the year, the running back for Texas, to a torn ACL. So that stinks. But yeah,
They'll
but
be fine though.
he's been doing well. Yeah.
Cedric Baxter, right? The freshman. I mean, he's a stud.
Yeah. Zan really likes him. He made that comment off air. So running back they'll be fine. They'll be fine. But it does suck. Jonathan Brooks is a great player. All right. So moving on here, Oklahoma rolls over West Virginia. Big bounce back win for the Sooners. Zan and I got you there on the spread, man. Condolences on that one. That big bounce back win for the Sooners at home. They play better in Norman. They do.
The way OU have been playing, man. Like since the Texas win, they were just playing hungover essentially, and then they finally woke up. I mean,
no, I didn't blame you one bit. It's just OU, the home road splits this year are pretty real. They just play a lot better in Norman. Yeah, this one is I don't want to talk about it. UCF beats Oklahoma State 45-3. I don't know. I watched it. I turned it off after like the second drive of the third quarter, after like the 5th turnover that Oklahoma State had. I mean, you'd like to be able to just say like this is one where you're just like, okay, there was crazy wacky turnovers. UCF had like 3 interceptions that bounced off a guy's hands, like 3 tip drill interceptions, fumble recoveries. There was a monsoon, like a huge cold front went through during the middle of the game. There was a monsoon for majority of the first half. Like everything was going wrong, but at the same time, the monsoon wasn't stopping UCF from dropping like, explosive 50-yard touchdown bombs on Oklahoma State. So there's not really many excuses. I would like to write it off as, yeah, this was just some crazy college football wackiness that just happens. But at the same time, like, in no universe should that be an excuse. Like, you shouldn't be losing 45-3 to UCF when you are in Big 12 title contention. Are you kidding me? This is the second time in this year that Oklahoma State has just completely let the bottom fall out. You get smoked at home. You get annihilated at home by South Alabama, who's not even bowl eligible as a G5 team this year. And now you got annihilated by a UCF team that hasn't beaten a single legacy Big 12 member yet this year. Like, Mike Gundy's got a lot of praise, man, but like, he just doesn't have the team ready to play these games. And they can sort of afford this loss because in all likelihood, Iowa State's going to lose another game. And Oklahoma State still does have a pretty good shot to get to Arlington, but it's like you can't be, in my eyes, like, you cannot be taken seriously as a legitimate like conference contender if you like are getting blown out by inferior teams by 40 points. Like, in no universe is that acceptable, or should you look at a team like that objectively and say, yeah, that's a good team that can win a conference championship? It is not. Like, I got to call it like I see it.
But Shub, you probably take this in a heartbeat though to win the last ever Bedlam. Like if I told
100%.
if I told you, like, dude, I mean, you're going to get just waxed by UCF, but you're winning the last ever Bedlam. I mean, I think you take this 10 out of 10.
Oh, that's a totally different conversation, Tommy. 100%. Oh, yes. If you told me you were going to get, if UCF's going to beat you by 6 touchdowns, but that means you win the last Bedlam, I am taking that, and I think a majority of Oklahoma State fans are taking that. So yes, from that lens, absolutely. But in terms of like us talking about Oklahoma State as a legitimate threat to beat Texas and win the Big 12, like, no, I do not. Yeah. They are not close. Texas would beat them by at least 2 scores right now if they played. The team is not that good. I just got to call it like I see it, man. It's inexcusable. Enough with that. Rant over.
Real quick, man. Kansas let us down, man.
Well,
lost to Tech.
Jason Bean got hurt in this game, and they had to go down to their 3rd string quarterback in this game. There's a huge part of it, but yeah,
They had a chance.
It is a shame. Yeah, I think if Bean did not get hurt,
they win.
Yes, it still would have been close, but I think with Bean, Kansas still gets the edge on them. But that's a tough loss, man. That is a tough loss.
But hey, Lance Leipold, the fact we're talking about Kansas getting upset, that alone just shows how great things are over in Lawrence right now.
Exactly. And Texas Tech's still a decent middle of the pack Big 12 team this year. So it's not.
Yes, especially having lost what they've lost. I mean, agreed. It's not an atrocious loss by any means, and it's a good win for Tech.
Exactly. All right. Big 10 action here. Iowa versus Rutgers. Man, this game. We hyped up this game a lot. Saturday Scholars, we hyped up this game a lot. And it sort of lived up to the billing. Iowa actually scored a lot more points than I thought they would have. It was 6-0 going into the 4th quarter. And then Iowa was able to get 10 points in the 4th quarter. So shout out to them. Deacon Hill actually was okay. He threw for 223 yards.
Career
That's
highs,
actually very
baby.
good. That's very good. Yeah, career high. Hey, we got to call like salty. We see it, man. Good job.
Like, Rutgers isn't a bad defense.
No, not at all.
They had Ohio State, in a dogfight. I mean, they're much improves. And the fact that Iowa could essentially have a good offensive performance and the under still hit, though, that tells you everything you need to know right there.
Exactly.
That under of 27.5.
Lowest under on record. Which amazing. Exactly. And hey, I told you if player props, I told you Gavin Wimsatt, quarterback for Rutgers, I said he would throw at least an interception. He did. And I said he would throw for under 100 passing yards. He threw for 93. So cash, get the cash register noise there. Cha-ching. Even though I can't bet on player props here in Arizona. It's not legal. But if I could, that's what I would have done. Illinois, shout out to the Illini, man. Any of you Illini fans that follow this channel or listen to us, you happen to listen to us from the Dynasty, if that got you into our channel. Shout out to you guys. Big overtime win against Indiana to keep your Big 10 West hopes alive, even though I think Iowa's sort of got that one in the bag, though. Tiebreakers can still, if Iowa chokes the last 2 weeks, one of these teams can still beat them out theoretically, but the Big Ten West is just Wisconsin lost to Northwestern.
That's grudge material right there.
Show the Big Ten West standings. Like this is not
Absolutely.
this is not a serious division. This is not a serious division. Just look at the standings. Like, imagine if Iowa just I imagine if Iowa just had a top 80 offense. This would not even be close. But imagine if you threw Penn State in this division. Like we talk about Penn State right now, how they are in the dumpster. About. Yes, exactly. Penn State just absolutely dominates division. They beat Iowa 30-0 in week 3, for God's sake. Like, I'm going to listen, as much as I'm trashing it, I'm also going to miss it. I am going to miss the Big Ten West. It is going away after this year. But
I want Illinois to beat Iowa this week because I want Iowa versus Nebraska, and I don't remember if that's Heartland or what that rivalry is called, but I want that to be for the division.
I mean, Iowa choked, and they mean choked last year. They could have won the Big Ten West, and they choked it away to Purdue because they lost to Nebraska at the very last game of the season last year. Remember that?
Voodoo ran out. You know, Phil Parker went to the ATM, and they said, "Man, no, you've withdrawn too much voodoo." So,
oh man,
and then they still won the bowl game, and oh my gosh, that was such an atrocious bowl game when they played Kentucky. They literally played their SEC cousin. Oh. But getting off base, I apologize. Iowa tends to do that. I think it's
that's all right. Let's move over to the G5 now. Let's give the G5 some love here. James Madison and Liberty, they continue to roll on. They're both 10-0. I think Liberty's going 12-0, man. Like Liberty's schedule is an absolute joke, but to their credit, they definitely are, you know, a weight class above the rest of the competition in the CUSA.
They're gonna go 12-0 and playing like the New Orleans Bowl here.
It's Caden Salter, good player, good G5 level player. I mean, if you look at the power ratings, like Liberty is still like they're in like the 70 to 80 range, which is it. They'd be like a very bottom tier power 5 team, or, you know, one of the better G5 teams. They're definitely not one of the best G5 teams, but they play in what is by far the worst conference in CUSA, Conference USA.
Easily.
Listen, I love it, but it's also like easily the worst conference outside of maybe the MAC might give them a run for their money. The MAC and Conference USA are not very good. But hey, 10-0 is good. And then what James Madison doing is just absolutely hella impressive, man. And I really hope for the sake of them that they get this waiver approved by the NCAA. We'll
remember, if there's not enough bowl eligible teams, they'll get in and pick them on the money line, on the spread, on anything, because they will be so jacked up and they will win that game. I can say that with 100% certainty.
But they got to play for the conference championship, though. That's the question. It's like, what does the Sun Belt do if they don't get the bowl eligibility until after conference championship week, and the team that should have been playing in your conference championship game gets, you know, approved to be bowl eligible after the fact, and they don't get to play for the conference championship? Like that's got to be a big, and that might be something that holds them out from being the New Year's Six representative. If they're 12-0, but they were not eligible to play for the Sun Belt Championship game when they decided the bowls,
they're ranked like 18 in the AP, man. Like, so the voters are seeing it, you know.
The AP is more old school voting style. The CFP committee is never going to rank them, which, of course, they shouldn't. I mean, let's be honest here. Their best win is like Virginia. We're talking G5 here. Let's keep G5 in its own lane. Like, it's a great team, but yeah, it's still a shame that they might get really screwed over here. Mountain West, how about UNLV, man? UNLV has been a quietly very surprising story this year. Very good for them.
Man.
Got a big game coming up versus Air Force, which is got potentially a spot in the Mountain West Championship game on the line. And yeah, Air Force we're gonna pick this game. We'll talk about
Air Force stock, man. Like, they got quarterback injuries. Like, you cannot lose to Hawaii. That is bad.
Yep. I don't know what the hell has happened. They're kind of pulling a Wazoo just later in the season, like all of a sudden just completely just tanking. It doesn't make any sense.
Don't know what happened. I mean, for the life of me,
I don't either. It's a shame. I love Air Force, but we'll see. The Mountain West now has gotten very interesting. How about some more Mountain West news, though, man? Boise State fires head coach Andy Avalos. That was actually announced today, too. Boise State really has just, they've been, I'll say it, mediocre. The program has been mediocre compared to Boise State's high standards. Back in the Kellen Moore years, that era when they were the BCS busters, definitely missed those days. They were beating Power 5 teams, scheduling them in non-con and playing them and beating them. They had showed out in
Oh, that
bowl
was
games too.
insane.
Yeah, I mean Boise State, that was some of the best years in college football, was back when they were good. Those years when they were the BCS busters, but since then Boise State's definitely been, I mean, they've been a good program. They've been easily one of the best G5 programs over the last decade so, but they've slowly kind of tapered off and now they're kind of falling back more to the pack. They're still a good G5 program, but they are not above and beyond one of the best G5 programs anymore.
I think part of that is just the Mountain West is caught up. The group of five, some of their programs have caught up. The transfer portal, all the usual talking points. And the reality is that in all the transitions, Andy Avalos it just couldn't cut it. I mean, remember when I ranted about that Colorado State loss, early in the season? A Chris Peterson team absolutely does not lose that team. Heck, I don't even think a Brian Harsin coach team loses that game. And to go in the candidates real quick, for me, it's simple. You bring Harsin back, say, hey, we're glad to have you back. That Auburn thing was weird, but let's get this rolling again and get back to double-digit win seasons.
Exactly. That's where they belong, man. I mean, they were what, in the Fiesta Bowl in 2014 with Harsin?
Yes, that's the
was
one
Harsin's first year.
That's the one they beat Washington, remember? Or not Washington, Arizona. My apology.
Yeah.
Remember I told you with the goal line stand and everything?
Yep. Oh yeah, I remember that.
And then since then, one some Blossom. They actually they had that game. Do you remember this? They were supposed to play Boston College in 2018 in the first responder bowl and it got canceled.
I do remember
canceled.
I do remember that.
But yeah, they finished 16 in the polls in 14. They finished ranked between 17 and 19. 2020, they still went 5-2 and won all their conference games, asterisks galore. And then, Harsin left. And then Avalos, he made the conference championship game last year and they lost. But it's looking at trends. And Boise State has been trending down. You're allowing teams like Wyoming and Air Force to finally start crawling out of the pot and drag you down as they try to get past. And that was just unfathomable, heck, 3 years ago.
Exactly. I mean, you want to hear this stat? This is crazy.
I do.
So from 2002 through 2020, so an 18-year stretch there, or 19-year stretch actually, Boise State in every single one of those years from 2002 through 2020 at one point was ranked in the AP poll. 19 straight years of being ranked as a G5 program in the AP poll at some point in the season. 21, 22, 23, not ranked. That streak was snapped in 21, and since then they have not been ranked at any point the last 3 years. That is insanely impressive, man.
Yeah, and, I mean, the Boise State we know beats Washington, or at least covers. Granted, Washington's a unit this year, but the teams we've talked about really could beat that kind of caliber of team. And that's where you need to get back to. And I think it's possible. It's hard in the ever-changing landscape of college football and people transferring out, all the good G5 guys. But I think if they could get a guy like Harsin to come back.
You beat me to it, man. I was like, you get back with your ex Harsin?
Yeah.
That left you for.
No, you got to. I mean, he was there for 7 years, saw the SEC gold, ran there, and it was like, oh my gosh, like Auburn's like kind of needy and controlling. And like my other ex, we were just vibing and chilling, and life was good. And I think I hope it's a mutual thing and they bring them back, because if they do, I mean, this already good conference is just going to be even more of entertainment.
Yeah, I got a better one for you. If you get good old old friend Chris Peterson out of retirement.
Oh my gosh. That
No,
would
that's
be
I'm
no
sorry,
shot.
that's
No.
probably not gonna happen. Yeah, but
Yeah. I mean, he left Washington
Boise
at like
State fans
peak.
can dream. But yeah, I'll be interesting, man. I'll be interested to see who they hire here because it's gonna really give you a good gauge of like how college football is changing and how
Mhm.
coaches are starting to value G5 versus P5. And the separation between the G5 and the P5 is unfortunately for Boise State. It's starting to slowly grow more and more every year. I feel
Mhm.
like the gap is not as close as it used to be, and it'll be interesting to see how that job is valued by prospective coaches by based on who they can get for this one. So I'll be interested to
Maybe
hear that. But yeah,
maybe they
best of
should
luck to Boise
hire
State, man. And they
they
got
should
some
get
two interesting quarterbacks on their roster right now in Talon Green
mhm.
and Matthew Maddox, I think is his name.
Yeah, Maddox rings a bell.
Yeah, he's good passer. You got Talon Green, is a great dual threat guy. Not so much of as a passer, but they got some interesting players in the quarterback position to work with if they can keep those guys around. So be very interested to see how this plays out.
Jimbo's gonna love them.
Yep. And real quick, how about shout out to New Mexico State, man. New Mexico State clinches a spot in the CUSA title game.
Jerry
And
Kill.
Jerry Kill, man, shout out to Jerry Kill. They are 8-3. They got to play Auburn next week, actually. So they're scheduled to play Auburn, and then I forget who they play in the or I think that is their last game in the regular season. And they go play Liberty in the CUSA title game. So shout out to the Aggies. That's another conference championship that is set. All right, man. We've exhausted enough here. We've gone a minute 38. So really quick, let's go over Shooby Snacks and Gonzo Grudges before we cut the cord here on week 11 recap. So I'm going to start with my Shooby Snacks, and, not a better way to start it off than the guy that we just mentioned 10 seconds ago, Jerry Kill. I got to give one to Jerry Kill, man. Guy's wearing his his camo stuff every week. I love the outfit on the sideline there. And he's done a great job with that New Mexico State program, man. Like New Mexico State was like a team that maybe should have been relegated, a program that could have easily been relegated to the FCS. Like that's how bad they were. And now he's got them competing for the conference championship in the first year in CUSA. It is very hard to do. Like we're talking about New Mexico State. That is not an easy job by any means. So
After taking them a bowl game last year.
right, exactly. It is having success at New Mexico State is very hard to do. So that shows how good of a coach Jerry Kill is. And then my second Shooby snack, this is more sort of like a backhanded Shooby snack, a backhanded compliment. So, instead of giving you the Shooby stack nicely, I'm sort of just kind of throwing it at you, say, here you go. I got to give it to Jimbo Fisher because, again, tip of the cap, small golf clap here for basically like robbing $76 million from Texas A&M. I gotta give credit, man. You're being paid $76 million to just go away. It must be nice. I respect that. So you be smacked Jimbo Fisher for all the right and wrong reasons.
And you gave out the Xanny Bars earlier in the program. I just
Wonder
wrote you
if
have
his Christmas tree is on the porch this year or on the curb. I don't know. It's too early for Christmas. I don't know. We'll see.
uh he has a lot to he has 76 million reasons to be thankful for Thanksgiving coming up in a couple weeks. For grudges, I really just have one. Nothing really grinding my gears. It's just Wisconsin. How could you lose to Northwestern? I mean, really. And maybe I'm being disrespectful in Northwestern. They've really done well given their
They're
circumstances.
five and
But
five.
yeah, I mean, they make a bowl game. Things fall their way in the next two. But Wisco, I mean, you were supposed to be taken serious. Like I took your over. She was smart and took the under. And I know they'll have it right in a few years, but like you just not only can you not lose Northwestern, you got smoked. And I'm pretty sure it was in Madison.
I
I'm
think
like
you're right.
very confident it was in Madison. So that just cannot happen. Okay, they lost by 14. That's still atrocious. So grudge against Wisco. Don't lose a Northwestern.
No. Not at all. It's inexcusable, and Wisconsin should definitely be separating themselves from the pack in this year's Big Ten West, and they just haven't been able to do that. So
Like
rough
after
start to the Luke Fickell series, man.
real quick, after Ohio State, actually, oh yeah, and they lost Indiana last week. You had Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, Minnesota. Like there was no reason that you should not be going to Indianapolis as Big Ten West champions.
They're going to be sweating out a bowl. They are going to be sweating out a bowl game. Yeah, I don't care.
One, but
I don't care. Year one, I don't care. Year one of any coach at Wisconsin, you should be beating Northwestern, Indiana. Period.
Yes.
Like I don't care who the coach is, what year you're in, you should be beating Northwestern and Indiana. So I think that's warranted. All right. Well, we have talked enough, an hour 42 minutes, give or take. So it's been a long pod. Thank you guys out there for whoever's listening or watching on YouTube. Appreciate you guys. Leave comments. Let us know what you think. A lot to talk about here this week. Let us know what you think about the Jimbo Fisher saga at A&M. Your thoughts on that. Michigan, Penn State, your thoughts on how that game went. All the other games that we talked about, we talk about a lot. We try to cover as much ground as we possibly can. So without further ado, this is the Saturday Scholars for Gonzo, Shoob, and Zan, who is not here today. The Saturday Scholars signing out. See y'all later. Have a great day and enjoy your college football Saturday.